Officer Letizia Silva and her loyal German shepherd, Thor, were supposed to be receiving a medal. But something felt wrong. That morning, sunlight streamed softly through the blinds of Leticia's apartment as she dressed in her formal uniform. Running a hand over the crisp fabric and checking her polished badge in the mirror, she caught Thor's reflection. The dog was still, yet his ears twitched with an alertness that felt out of place on a day of celebration. "What is it, boy? Why so restless?" Leticia asked, turning to her four-legged partner. Thor's deep brown eyes met hers, and in that instant, Leticia saw the unmistakable sign. After 5 years working side by side, she could read every nuance of his behavior, and today something was off. A faint tremor in his left ear spoke volumes to her experienced eyes. Though the ceremony was still 2 hours away, her gut churned with a familiar unease. Just 3 weeks ago, that same intuition had led them to the city's largest drug bust on record. During a routine patrol of an industrial park, Thor's demeanor had shifted, adopting the same hyper-alert posture she saw now. Following his lead, they uncovered a massive smuggling operation hidden beneath a seemingly abandoned warehouse. The ensuing raid was a maelstrom of gunfire and shouts, culminating in 37 arrests and the seizure of nearly $50 million in narcotics. It was that operation that had earned them today's honor. Pushing the memory aside, Leticia picked up Thor's special tactical vest, not the standard black one for patrols, but a ceremonial model decorated with the golden emblem of the K-9 unit. As she approached to put it on him, Thor instinctively shrank back, something he had never done before. "Thor?" she called, her voice laced with concern. On her second attempt, he allowed her to fit the vest, though his muscles remained coiled and tense beneath her touch. 7 years on the force had taught Leticia one thing: trust her instincts. And right now, they were screaming that something was terribly wrong. Her phone buzzed with a text from Captain Mendez. The press was already gathering, and the commissioner wanted her there early for photos. Another message followed. "Big day for the department. Let's show them what our K-9 team can do." She clipped the leash to Thor's collar and headed out. In the elevator, his restlessness grew. He paced, his claws clicking against the metal floor in a rhythm that matched her own rising anxiety. The drive to police headquarters was short, but Thor's strange behavior continued. He kept glancing toward the back seat, scanning as if searching for an unseen threat. Outside, the modern glass facade of the headquarters gleamed in the sun. The plaza had been transformed for the ceremony, with rows of chairs, a podium, cameras, and a crowd of blue uniforms mingling with city officials and reporters. As she parked, Leticia noticed Thor's ears prick even higher, his body rigid. "Easy, boy," she murmured, though the words felt hollow. Her training had taught her that Thor's instincts were rarely wrong. They passed through security, greeted by the usual nods from fellow officers. Officer Jorge even gave Thor a curious look as they passed. He'd never seen the dog so tense. Leticia offered a tight smile, saying nothing as they made their way toward the main hall, where the ceremony would be held. Suddenly, Thor planted his paws, the leash going taut against her hand. "Come on, partner," she urged. He didn't budge. His eyes were locked forward, his posture a clear and urgent warning of danger. The bustling noise of the lobby seemed to fade as Leticia focused on her dog, trying to see what he saw. Captain Mendez appeared at the entrance, a welcoming smile on his face that vanished when he saw them. "Everything all right, Silva? The press is eager for a shot of our star team," he said. Leticia opened her mouth to reply, but before she could speak, Thor let out a sharp, piercing bark, nothing like his usual alert. Every head turned in their direction. Leticia felt a flush of embarrassment creep up her neck. Maybe he's just nervous with all the attention, the captain suggested. But Leticia barely heard him. She was watching Thor, whose eyes were now scanning the room and the line of people filing inside. There was something in his frantic energy that reminded her of that day in the industrial park. The same intensity, the same urgency. Another bark, even louder this time, solidified her decision. "Sir," she said, her voice firm, "I think we have a situation." Instinctively, her hand went to her hip, where her service weapon would normally be, though today she was unarmed in her dress uniform. Mendez's expression darkened. "It has a chemical trigger, not an electronic one," she declared suddenly to the bomb tech. "It's activated by a change in air pressure, like the IEDs in the training manuals." The technician looked at her, skeptical. "Are you sure?" "Not 100%, she admitted. But the way Thor tilted his head, the set of his ears, it was exactly the same as in the diagrams we studied. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, that changes our approach." 7 minutes later, Leticia watched as the bomb squad carefully packaged the neutralized device. No fire, no lost evidence, but the close call left her shaken. "How did they get this in?" Mendez asked, his voice low. "This area is supposed to be secure. And how did they know about the ceremony?" Leticia checked Thor's vest. "We have a leak," she said softly. Looking down at her partner, who remained on high alert, she added, "And I don't think they're done." Almost on cue, a distant alarm blared. Mendez's radio crackled to life. "Captain, we have a situation in the garage. Multiple suspicious vehicles just arrived." Leticia felt Thor tense beside her. The cartel had abandoned subtlety. This was a full frontal assault. The sound of gunfire from below echoed up the stairwell. Meeting Thor's determined gaze, Leticia saw her own conviction reflected back. They had stopped the bomb, saved the evidence, and protected the city. But the real fight was just beginning. "Ready to go to work, partner?" she whispered. Thor answered with a low growl, not of fear, but of anticipation. Leticia checked the borrowed sidearm Mendez handed her as he passed her a tactical vest to replace her ceremonial jacket. "So much for our ceremony," she remarked with a dry smile. "Guess we'll have to interrupt their plans instead." Mendez nodded grimly. "Show them why you two are getting that medal." They moved toward the sound of gunfire, knowing that with Thor by her side, they would always find a way. Gunshots echoed up the stairwell as Leticia and Thor descended toward the garage. Each blast reverberated off the concrete, making it impossible to count the number of shooters. Behind them, Mendez was coordinating with SWAT on his radio. 3 teams were inbound, with backup only 5 minutes out. "Silva, we should wait for reinforcement," he advised. But Leticia knew 5 minutes was a lifetime. The cartel's plan was meticulous. Bombs at the ceremony, a strike on the evidence room, and now a direct assault. This was no longer about destroying evidence. It was a declaration of war. Thor stopped dead, his head snapping toward a door on the second-floor landing. Leticia knew the sign. Multiple targets, moving. She held up 3 fingers to Mendez, who gave a solemn nod. A voice barked in Spanish, followed by the unmistakable rack of a shotgun. Leticia recognized the accent from a northern cartel. These weren't local thugs, they were professionals, and they were cutting off their exits. "They're trying to pin us down," Mendez hissed. Suddenly, a door burst open, and the first gunman appeared, not seeing Thor lunging from the shadows. The shepherd moved with breathtaking precision, taking the man down in a controlled, disarming tackle. Leticia was right behind, using the man's body as a shield as she engaged the second target. A dull ache flared in her shoulder from a previous encounter, but adrenaline masked the pain. Mendez laid down covering fire, forcing a third assailant back through the doorway. "Clear!" Leticia shouted, securing the downed men with zip ties. But more were taking positions below. The cartel wasn't just trying to trap them, they were trying to take the building. A burst of automatic fire ripped through the doorway, forcing them to take cover. Thor's growl deepened into a sound Leticia had only heard a few times before. She crouched beside him, a bullet whizzing past her head, trusting his senses completely. "Sniper! Second floor, northwest corner!" Mendez yelled. Leticia assessed the situation. They were caught between a sniper above and hostiles below. SWAT was still minutes away, and the cartel forces were closing in. That's when she saw it. The maintenance access panel on the wall, the one Thor had been subtly indicating. It connected to the building's utility crawlspace, a detail most would overlook, but one she and Thor were trained to notice. "Mendez, buy me 30 seconds. Can you do it?" she asked. The captain nodded. "Make them count." Moving in perfect sync, she and Thor slipped over to the panel. A silent, coordinated dance honed by years of partnership, and they were inside, emerging behind the sniper team's position. Two men, professionally equipped and focused on the stairwell, were taken completely by surprise. Thor neutralized one while Leticia took the other. The fight was brief and brutally quiet. As she secured the men with their own restraints, she noted they weren't cartel soldiers. They were hired mercenaries. "Mendez," she whispered into her radio. "Sniper team is down, but we have a bigger problem. Their leader is the explosives expert from the industrial park bust." Through the sniper's scope, Leticia could see him below, orchestrating the assault with military precision, directing his teams to establish perimeters while others prepared demolition charges. "SWAT is 2 minutes out," Mendez replied. "Be smart, Silva." Leticia scanned the layout. The cartel was ready for a frontal assault, but they weren't watching the structural support columns. Access routes no one would be crazy enough to use. She looked at Thor and saw the calculated gaze they had practiced in rappelling drills. A borrowed tactical vest with climbing hooks. Standard SWAT issue would have to do. "Ready for a leap of faith, partner?" she whispered. Thor's soft growl was all the answer she needed. He understood the risks as well as she did. It was time to act. Using a rope from the sniper's gear, Leticia secured a line to one of the support columns. "Mendez, on my signal, create a diversion on the east wall," she commanded. "And call a medic. You're gonna need one for my shoulder." The next few moments would become legend in the department. As Mendez and his men opened fire from the stairwell, Leticia and Thor descended into the shadows, a blur against the dim garage lighting. The cartel forces never saw them coming. Thor hit first, a silent projectile aimed at the explosives expert, while Leticia provided cover fire with her borrowed pistol. The surprise attack threw the enemy into chaos. An instant later, SWAT teams flooded the garage, catching the disorganized cartel in a perfect crossfire. Within seconds, it was over. Later, as medics tended to her bruised shoulder and gave Thor a once-over, Leticia watched them lead the explosives expert away. He met her gaze with a look of grudging respect and murmured in English, "In the cartel, they call your dog El Fantasma, the ghost. They say he can smell betrayal." I guess they were right. Mendez joined them. SWAT had recovered 3 more bombs. Nothing had detonated. Leticia stroked Thor's ears. That's all that matters, she said quietly. Thor leaned against her leg, calm now, but still watchful. They had stopped the cartel, saved the evidence, and kept the city safe. But she couldn't shake the feeling this wasn't over. Captain, she said, watching the last of the suspects being loaded into vans. That leak in our department is still active. Someone on the inside fed them intel that almost got a lot of cops killed today. Mendez nodded gravely. I know, but for now, you two have earned a rest. We'll find them tomorrow. Leticia looked down at Thor and saw her own resolve mirrored in his eyes. Tomorrow would bring its own fight. And together, as always, they would be ready. As dawn broke, Leticia stood in her office, staring at the evidence board. After the chaos of the previous day, sleep had been impossible. Her mind was already at work, piecing together the conspiracy that had nearly cost them everything. The photos were spread across the wall. The raid in the industrial district, the weapons, the cash, the drug shipments, and the detailed plans they had discovered. But one seemingly insignificant detail snagged her attention. A serial number on a communication device, linking it directly to official police equipment. Thor rested at her feet, his ears twitching at every sound from the slowly awakening building. Though they had been given the day off, they both knew there would be no rest until they found the internal leak. Someone had collaborated with the cartel, nearly taking the lives of dozens of officers, and Thor's instincts were a constant, silent accusation, searching for the traitor. Determined, Leticia reviewed the ceremony footage, analyzing every frame. She noticed that Thor's behavior hadn't changed when the receptionist arrived with the bomb, but moments before, when another person passed through the lobby. Lieutenant Ricardo, she whispered, naming the head of internal affairs, the very man who had insisted on the public ceremony, at that exact time and place. A knock at the door made them both turn. Captain Mendez entered, his expression grim. Did you find something? He asked. Leticia gestured to the mural of connections she had assembled. Ricardo has been in internal affairs for 15 years. He's in the perfect position to monitor investigations, to know exactly what we have on the cartel, and to make evidence disappear. Mendez studied the photos. The question is, can we prove it? Thor tensed, but not aggressively. A moment later, Ricardo himself appeared in the doorway, wearing his usual polished smile. A bit early for a meeting, don't you think? He said casually, as if the previous day had been nothing out of the ordinary. Leticia watched Thor carefully. His behavior now was different. Not the frantic alert of yesterday, but something more contained, more certain. We were just reviewing the security protocols, she replied, her voice even. The ones that failed so spectacularly. Ricardo's smile didn't waver, but a flicker of concern crossed his eyes. Yes, it's deeply troubling. I'll be conducting the internal investigation myself. We need to vet everyone involved. Thor moved silently, positioning himself between Ricardo and the door. The lieutenant's eyes darted to the dog, then back to Leticia as his hand drifted toward his jacket, as if reaching for something. Mendez raised a pistol, Ricardo's backup weapon, the same one they'd found hidden in the maintenance area. Ballistics just came back, Mendez said, his voice cold as steel. It's a match for 3 unsolved cartel shootings. In an instant, Ricardo's polished composure shattered, replaced by something hard and cold. You have no idea what you're up against. The cartel owns this city. Yesterday was just a warning. Leticia's voice was firm. No, yesterday was your last mistake. You were so focused on making a show at the ceremony, you forgot one thing. She pointed to Thor, who remained as still as a statue. You can't buy a dog's loyalty. Ricardo's reaction was explosive. He lunged at Leticia, but Thor was faster. Years of training culminated in a perfect takedown, immobilizing the corrupt officer without causing serious harm. Lieutenant Ricardo, Leticia announced, snapping the handcuffs shut. You are under arrest for conspiracy, attempted murder of police officers, and corruption. As Ricardo was escorted away, Leticia saw other colleagues gathering silently. The betrayal of one of their own stung, but she knew that exposing it would ultimately strengthen the department. Hours later, in the restored ceremony hall, Leticia sat with Thor at her side. The space was immaculate, as if the chaos of the previous day had never happened. The room was full again, but this time, only with police officers. Commissioner Ferreira stepped up to the podium, his voice echoing through the hall. Yesterday, we gathered to honor two heroes. Today, you have proven yourselves even more worthy of that honor. Officer Leticia Silva and K-9 Thor not only thwarted a terrorist attack against our department, but also exposed a corruption that threatened the very foundation of our justice system. As the commissioner spoke, Leticia felt Thor shift slightly against her leg. She knew her partner didn't care for medals or ceremonies. His reward was the simple satisfaction of a job well done, a danger neutralized, a partner protected. The cartel thought they could break us, Ferreira continued. They thought money could buy loyalty and fear could conquer duty, but they failed to understand what it means to be a true hero. Leticia stroked the fur behind Thor's ears as two medals were presented, one for her uniform and a smaller one for his tactical vest. They would rarely wear such honors. They were field officers, and their work was on the streets. Let's get back to it, partner, she whispered. Thor responded with a soft growl, as if to say there was already another mission waiting, another challenge to face. They would go on together, as they always did. Because true heroes aren't defined by ceremonies or medals, but by the choices they make, the loyalty they show, and the courage to do what is right, no matter the cost. Adjusting her uniform one last time, Leticia murmured, "Let's go, Thor. Time to move." As they walked out together, she realized that sometimes the greatest victories aren't won in dramatic battles, but in the quiet moments of trust between partners. Thor had taught her that, and it was a lesson she would never forget. As the ceremony continued behind them, her thoughts were already on the next mission. The city's streets needed their protectors, and this pair of heroes was ready to answer the call.